recourse loans? Well, recourse loans would actually be refinances of those same loans, or any other loan, basically. And there can be tax consequences to getting debt relief on recourse loans. And the IRS's thought on that is that if the lender had the ability to come after you for a deficiency and they gave that up, that's a windfall to you. And that's IRS speak. I mean, you know, the IRS sees somebody saying, I won't sue you for $30,000 as the same as you making $30,000 that year. So if you are dealing with non-recourse loans, and a lot of these are non-recourse loans, you want to point your sellers in the direction of a good CPA or a tax lawyer to see what are the tax ramifications of this going to be, and do they qualify for relief under that act that Bush passed and Congress passed back in December of '07 that actually does give some relief for this, this phantom income, as they say. But the one thing to say, I mean, you don't want to become tax professionals, you don't want to become tax attorneys or CPAs in any of this, but what you do want to do is you want to tell your sellers, by the way, short sale can have tax consequences for you, go check it out. Same thing with the hit to the credit. What are you guys seeing in terms of the credit hits that sellers are taking on short sales, or do you ever hear about that? I mean, do sellers ever call you back and say, this was the damage that was done to my credit? Anybody know? No?
Stone silent.
Okay. Well, the way I heard it described, this was again by my mortgage broker buddy, he said the problem that they're having with short sales right now is that the major credit reporting agencies don't have a box to check for short sales. They have boxes to check for everything else. And for each box you check, everything is assigned a certain hit against your Fair Isaac score. But they don't really have anything for short sale. So each credit reporting agency kind of deals with it in a different way. And there are some credit agencies that say short sale is the same thing as a foreclosure, so give it the same hit. There are others that say, it's really more like settled debt, so put it down for settled debt. And there's a big difference depending on which one of those you get. If you happen to are dealing with the credit reporting agency that says put it down as a foreclosure, well, that's going to be a big ding against somebody's credit. I don't know, like something like 100 points, which is huge and stays on for a while. The settled debt thing is more like, apparently it's more like 10 to 20 points, so it's not as big a hit. But again, the point is there's really no way of knowing. And each credit reporting agency is going to deal with it differently. So what you want to do with your sellers is you want to warn them. Same with the tax thing, is to say, look, there's going to be a hit against your credit, and it's going to have an effect on you. So if you're going, if your plan is to get out from under this property and get into another property, factor this into it, because you may not be able to get a loan, or you may wind up in a different loan package and paying a higher percentage rate or something like that. So those are things to warn your sellers about while they, while you're signing them up. Looked like you.
Yeah. How many years does a short sale stay on your credit and a foreclosure sale?
Again, it depends on how they characterize it. If they're going to characterize it as a foreclosure, sounds like Jim has an answer there.
There's a Q&A. CAR has a Q&A for federally insured loans. They just published it 2 months ago. You need to go pull it down. Short sales are 2 years, foreclosures are 5 years, something is 4 years. What's that one? Come on, you've read it, Sandy.
Fair Isaac, a representative from Fair Isaac talked to us at the NAR meetings in Washington and said they do not characterize either a pay or a foreclosure. The records stay on there on foreclosure for 7 years on your credit report, but how it's treated changes over time depending upon the weight that that particular box that gets checked is treated by whoever wants to give you credit, not Fair Isaac.
Okay, well anyway, I wouldn't be talking, I don't talk to my clients about this stuff. I send them the Q&A, let them read it. That's why I don't know what it says, because I'm not going to repeat it, because it's really quite murky.
It's from Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's CAR Q&A,
website.
2009 Q&A, you go on the legal section, it's on the front page, you know,
Right.
it's right there.
All right. And again, I mean, the real trick here is to try not to make too many representations to your sellers on that, because those representations always become what? Guarantees, the G word. So if you say you're only going to get, a 100-point hit and it's only going to stay on your credit for 2 years, and it turns out to be a 200-point hit that stays on their credit for 5 years, you're probably going to hear about it. Reluctant lenders, hardship letters. Nothing really magical about that. If you've got a lender that is reluctant to do a short sale or to give a release, try writing a hardship letter and sending it to the asset manager that's in charge of it and seeing what it does. I haven't seen any of those go anywhere, so I don't know. If you write one to the right person, maybe you'll get some sort of a break. Credit issues we've already dealt with. Time crunch issues. That is something that we'll talk about. It kind of molds and merges into number 5, which is the impact of foreclosures. But you have a limited amount of time, obviously, to get all of the stuff done before properties go into foreclosure. And there's a new law that I think went into effect last week that adds another 90 days, 3 months to the foreclosure process. But we'll talk about that more in just a few minutes. But the time crunch issues are simply, you've got a bank on one hand that takes forever to get you the approval. So what do you do in that time frame? Do you get all your inspections done? Do you not get all your inspections done because your buyer doesn't really want to sink money into a property that they don't know whether they're going to get or not? And if they do get it, what are the time frames going to be? They could be fairly reduced. So those are things to think about as you're representing buyers, really more than anything else in a short sale situation. Is how much time are you going to have to complete your inspections, get your disclosures, review your disclosures, so on and so forth. So going into that, how do you deal with that? Well, in the contract, if you're going into a short sale thing, you're writing an offer for a buyer in a short sale, make sure that that's dealt with in the contract. Make sure you're using the right addendums and so on and so forth, so that your inspection periods don't start until you get approval from the lender and that the seller has agreed to accept the lender's offer, and that's when your inspection periods should start. Okay, how to meet the challenges. Analysis at the beginning, use of the short sale listing agreement. All right. MLS remarks, we've covered that. Referral to knowledgeable tax professionals, work with the escrow. Again, you don't want to sign on as being the experts in tax issues and credit issues, but what you do want to do is you want to point your sellers, point your buyers in the right direction. Same thing, really, that you go through when you're representing a buyer and there's red flags in the home inspection. Do you want to opine on those issues and those red flags? No, you want to point them in the direction of the professional that's going to give them the right advice. And whether they take that advice or not is not up to you, or whether they even seek it or not, they may not. But as long as you have pointed them in the right direction, you have discharged your duties and you're good to go.
In writing.
In writing. Everything should always be done in writing. If you don't do something in writing, for the most part, you haven't done it, because you got to be able to prove that you've done it. I'll digress for 1 second and give you a case that I had many, many years ago. I was representing a guy who had represented 2 very, very young, very, very naive buyers. They wanted to live down by the beach in San Diego, as does everybody. Problem was they had virtually no income. So they go to my guy and they say, we want to live by the beach. And he says, okay, well, what do you make every year? They give him their financial statements, and he says, oh, let me show you some stuff in East County. If you're from San Diego, you'd know what the significance of that is. They couldn't afford anything within 50 miles of the beach. So he shows them a bunch of stuff, and they're not happy. So he keeps working with them, tries to get their expectations down. Anyway, they go to a party one night, and they're lamenting their woes in terms of what they're finding in the market. And they strike up a conversation with a guy who happens to be a general contractor that says, "Oh, well, here's your problem. You're looking to buy, an